Serj, so nice to have you here with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, the first time I formally met you was back in 2015. When yeah. It was during the concert, the Armenian Genocide Centennial Concert with System of a Down here at the Republic Square in Armenia. And well, I mean, I remember it was raining, it was pouring rain, but everybody's adrenaline was pumping on the Republic Square during that performance. It was like we were in a spellbound situation. And I recall observing you after that performance and how you were taking the time to meet with your fans and really, you know, making them feel valued and respected. And I thought, oh my God, this man, not only is he this incredible performer, artist, entrepreneur, but he's also this, you know, he emulates humanity and humility, if I can say it that way. So since this program is about mindfulness, I thought the best way to start would be for you to tell us a little bit how you would conduct a mindful life. How do you currently live a mindful life?
I try. I don't always succeed. But mindfulness is bringing your mind and your presence and awareness into the moment. Whether you're meeting a new person, whether you're rushing, whatever you're doing, to keep in mind that this is a unique experience, that it's a unique day, that you're here today, you might be gone tomorrow. And so everything that you do, you have to do with that in mind, you know? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're overwhelmed and you forget to be mindful and then you're stressed out and then you go, shit,
yeah.
You know, time to be you know, time to bring everything into perspective. I did learn transcendental meditation many years ago, which has helped drastically in terms of on a daily basis being able to quiet the mind early in the day before taking on all of the responsibilities and, you know, things to do. So that is very helpful. Yeah.
Has that actually, do you still practice actually meditation?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Whenever you can find a few minutes.
Yeah. I used, you know, sometimes I do it daily. There are times when I'm traveling, I can't. But I try to always get back to it.
It's very grounding. It really grounds.
It's grounding and it's evolved into different, you know, there's many forms of meditation.
Absolutely.
There's breath meditation, walking meditation, sitting meditation. There's, you know...
tree hugging meditation. Have you heard of that? Tree hugging
meditation? Yeah, I've heard of that. But, you know, I mean, I always tell people, if you can be present while you brush your teeth, the rest of life will be easy.
Absolutely.
Because it's those daily tasks that we do repetitively that we never pay attention to, that if we can bring our mind to everything.
There's so much noise going on, obviously. It's not just from the phone or the news or the social media. It's just there's constant, I mean, I know somebody said it was like 17, I don't know how many thousand words per minute or thoughts per minute that go through your head. And basically it's just overwhelming you with so many things. Mostly, I think, and this comes to my next question, is your sense of authenticity is also something that comes through and that I've noticed. You know, in today's society, we're taught at a very young age to conform, you know, to conform to what our parents want us to be, you know, a doctor, a jeweler, a lawyer, or, you know, what the community tells us how we should succeed in life, or what social media tells us what success means. Yet, so our identities seem to be built mostly around this kind of idea or the perception of what others' perception is of us. You know, it's so all these noise or thoughts that come to us, and we tend to kind of deviate from what is authentic to us. You seem to be living a very authentic life, at least in whatever you do on a daily basis. Tell me, was this something that was taught from a very young age? Was this something that you learned, you know, over the years? What triggers you to actually live without filters, without masks, as authentically as possible?
The beginning days of the band, I was lucky enough to be a little older in the beginning days of the band, and seeing a very, an industry that's based on illusion and hype. The music industry, the film industry, it's a lot of hype, right? And realizing that that is exactly what it is, it's hype, and not taking it too seriously. And that's always kind of kept me normal in that industry, if you will. Because, you know, everyone enjoys praise, everyone enjoys, you know, being revered, but you also have to weigh that against the reality of who you actually are and what other people's perception are. And at one point you have to, for your own health, discount other people's perceptions altogether and just say, this is who I am. Sometimes I'm going to be loved and there are times I'm going to be not liked or hated or whatever. But as long as I know that I'm following my vision and doing the right thing, that I could sleep at night and deal with the challenges accordingly, then it's good.
Is that how you actually also circumvent any harsh criticism or, I don't know, apathy maybe, or harassment? Sometimes, I mean, I see a lot of that kind of harassment even on your pages, your social pages. I'm assuming that's just another way to circumvent that and to lead a...
It really, I mean, it is. I think, you know, nobody likes to be criticized, is the truth. Nobody likes to be hated. And nobody likes to, you know, be put under that type of pressure. But, you know, I just feel like irrespective of what's happening outside, as long as you are following the path that you think is the right path, and that
you're not causing harm to anybody in the meantime.
Not just causing harm, but, you know, as we grow older, we realize that everything's interconnected, and as we see the purposes of all of these things. Even pressure has a purpose. It's got an end goal. And so if you're able to see that, then you see that people are trying to use a certain amount of pressure to make you do a certain thing. And it's transparent, right? And if it's not something that you want to do, then you don't do it, you know? But you have to know what that is. You have to apply awareness to all of those things, be they personal, political, social, and do what you need to do. It's an interesting thing because it's not selfish, but it's almost a kind of selfishness where you are trying to be in so tune of what your vision is that you don't want to disregard other people's opinions and perspectives, but you can't necessarily apply yourself to them if you actually know where you're going.
That makes sense. It's kind of like you have to know yourself as much as possible. It's like that strong sense of self-awareness, and when you have that, it's not complacency, but it's that self-awareness that allows you to really enable yourself to identify what is true to you and what makes sense for you. And I think that's why you know, unfortunately, I see in schools today, it doesn't matter if it's in Armenia or anywhere, that they don't really allow the child's full potential to surface, or their talents, you know, and that's something that we try to fight in the education system to enable them to.
We're lucky to have been born before social media, because the type of image pressure that kids are under these days due to social media is crazy. Absolutely. It's insane. And you see all of the effects of that in terms of plastic surgery, in terms of how people, you know, are living their lives. All of that is based on other people's perspectives. And it's sad to see, even in Armenia, you know, young women applying themselves to those kind of, you know, extra medical
procedures,
means, you know, procedures. It's just, you know, it's a part of our life today, I guess, you know.
You mentioned earlier about purpose, and something comes to mind is how somebody, and I can't remember who said this, but it was a quote by somebody that said, once you have that crossroad, or once you align your passion with your purpose, amazing things happen to you. And I thought, you know, I thought about Garik Israelian, who had a huge passion, still has, for music, right? For the longest time before he actually went and did his PhD, he had this huge passion for music. So combining astrophysicist, physical, let's say, academy or faculty with music, and here he is, that's the passion, at a crossroad with purpose, which is establishing this festival, Starmus, and the purpose of which is to actually give access to science and music and arts to even the non-scientific brain people like me, you know. So I see that with you. I mean, you take your art, and it's not just the music, it's everything that you do with your art, and you actually are at crossroad with the purpose of raising the awareness. And I know you've spoken about this many times in different locations, but I do want to pinpoint that it's amazing how you consistently use your voice and your art to raise awareness on so many different social, political issues, injustices around the world, truth to power, climate, environment. Are there things that actually trigger you the most? I mean, I know genocide awareness has been for years, one of your priorities. But are there certain things that you know that these are I would never cross the boundaries on these issues, or these are things I definitely make sure that I speak about, regardless of my music or my art?
Hypocrisy and injustice, both are trigger points for me. When I see, when I see people say one thing and do another, that's a trigger point. Injustice, massive injustice that causes damage, whether it's personal, human rights, political, whatever, environmental. That's a trigger point for me. And it's almost like I can't help but to speak out. And in some cases, I wish I don't, but then I can't help it in a way.
Why? Because it gets you in trouble?
Because that's who I've always been, and it did start with the genocide recognition, the hypocrisy of the taboo nature of genocide recognition within a well-known democracy like the United States. It started with that, and that was my awakening as an activist, to say that if there are these truths that are hidden for geopolitical or other purposes, then how many other truths are, hidden under the carpet because it's profitable not to reveal them, or all of that stuff. And that itself made me an activist at a very young age, and so that's kind of been my journey. And music, so I was an activist obviously before becoming a musician and before becoming an artist, and music gave me the vehicle in which I could kind of, dispense these truths and opinions, if you will, or perspectives, and hopefully make a positive difference. It's one of the things that I really care about, is making a positive difference. And it's not always the case. I always say activists of any type of, let's call it genre, be it economic or ecological or whatever, they're lucky if they see any progress within their lifetime of the cause that they, adhere to. They're lucky if they see any progress. It's rare, but we do it because that's what we need to do. We don't do it because we want to see immediate results. And if we don't see results, we stop. That's not right. You have to believe in something and dedicate yourself to it because you believe that will make a difference, not just within your lifetime, but thereon. The planet existed before us for millions of years, and
hopefully it'll exist for millions of years
later.
Hopefully.
I use the word likely. But yeah, so let's see.
When Azerbaijan attacked Artsakh in Stepanakert in 2020, that's where it started, in Stepanakert. I remember seeing how vocal you were. You have always been vocal, but I mean, there was some kind of a very rigid and ridiculous discipline in you to make sure that there was content out there, whether you were trying to fight the trolls or the bots, or at the same time really making sure that your voice was heard. Whereas Cardi B or let's say Elton John, immediately took down their content about the atrocity in Artsakh. And you just continued and you went through, and like I said, you had this ridiculous or insane discipline to produce even more content. I think from that you had developed, or composed or produced many different other songs like Protect the Land, Genocidal Humanoids, I think Amber as well, and several others. So I mean, I just see, and your artwork also, just all these exhibits, what is it about? Is it this sense of resilience in you, or the sense of we need more media coverage out there during these atrocities or during these difficult moments, and that's what drives you to actually produce more?
When Azerbaijan attacked Artsakh and Armenia in 2020.
Where were you, by the way?
I was in New Zealand. We were in New Zealand with the family. We lived there part of the year. We were in New Zealand, and we felt cut off from our people because, even in LA, you have a big Armenian community. And we felt cut off, and both Ange and I were working diligently. And one of the reasons, to answer your question properly, is when Azerbaijan and Turkey attacked Armenia and Artsakh, they didn't just attack with military, they also attacked with propaganda. And we all immediately saw that we were on the lopsided side of the propaganda, because the Armenian state didn't have a propaganda vehicle outside of its borders to disseminate its own perspective, right? So we all felt like it was our duty, whether we wanted to or not, that we had to disseminate this information, that we are being attacked. You know, the first untruth that they dispelled was that this was Armenia attacking, which we all know and has been proven many, many times over, that that was not the case, that, you know, Turkey had a TRT journalist at the border the morning they attacked. How is that possible? So, you know, we were just trying to fight this propaganda war, you know, of getting the word out on what was going on. Same goes for the songs with System of a Down. I was still in New Zealand when my drummer John hit us all up and said, hey guys, we need to, you know, we haven't done anything in we haven't put out music in 15 years. This is the perfect opportunity to do something, just to get the attention of people on the war and stuff like that, which was obviously all in our hearts, and we all immediately said yes and made it happen. And, you know, for a moment, it actually made a glitch, because we saw media reports in terms of how it kind of broke in through that disinformation campaign that Azerbaijan was doing and all the bots they had hired. It was a very well-coordinated campaign in terms of media that they attacked us with. So I think we all felt we had to do that, you know, and then we went back to LA because we felt like we were on an island trying to fight this war no one around us knew about. And continued that work in Los Angeles with other people of the Armenian community.
And you still did even after that. I mean, even after even in November, December, there was so many different. I mean, I call you a kaleidoscope artist, because I think you take your art and your music and penetrate with different shapes and patterns. Yeah. Whether it's, you know, producing or composing, you know, symphony scores, producing movies, and you continue to do that. You're never stopped. Are you reinventing yourself every time? Do you feel like it's a rebirth at every process? And since that war, if you can talk about it, what are other new projects do you have lined up or planning? What you can actually disclose, obviously.
In a way, you know, the rebirth thing is, I think, important for any artist, irrespective of activism or not. All good artists kind of reinvent themselves, be they Madonna or David Bowie, or, you know, any good artist worth anything is a reinventing artist, because if you continue, and I don't mean in a extroverted kind of way, but kind of just learn new things, do new things as an artist, apply yourself in different directions for the art itself to have more potency and dynamics. Otherwise, repetition in art is redundancy and death. To answer the second part of your question, mostly what I've been doing is more in the film world. So I've been composing for a lot of docuseries, some Netflix docuseries, 3 of which haven't come out yet. I'm writing a book of my kind of a memoir, a philosophical memoir. So it's a memoir, but also inspirational and philosophical. I'm also I'm doing a operatic kind of hour performance, live performance that's going to be streamed worldwide from Los Angeles at the Soraya Theater. That's called Invocations, with different solo voices and just a bunch of projects. And a lot of art. I have a lot of art exhibitions planned, especially between Los Angeles and New Zealand, because those are the 2 places that I paint. And all of my art is, you know, musically combined, musically composed art, physical art with musical compositions. So, you know, and I don't think about what leads to what. For me, it's all one big pot of inspiration, and it could be everything coming in from political, from, you know, environmental, from family, from friends, from love to hate, to all of the emotions, all in one pot, and different types of projects come out of it. And I don't think about what creates what, because it's just my daily life.
And so if that big pot of yours, how much of it, I mean, the part of the research that we were working on was how much of an individual is that could be shaped or conditioned by the history of their forefathers. For instance, you know, how much of my grandparents who were survivors of genocide, your 4 grandparents were survivors of genocide, how much of that trickled down onto you, not necessarily your parents only, but to you, and to shape your behavior, your way of thinking, your way of feeling. How much of that do you think has actually been part of your life? We won't go into the details of your grandparents, but yeah.
The answer to that is I don't know, really. But one thing I do know is that the history of our family and of our people keep on coming to me at unexpected times in my own life. So when we did Screamers, the whole story of my grandfather and interviews I had done with him with this beautiful organization called Genocide Project years ago while he was alive and he was in a, you know, in a mental state where he could actually be very
vocal or articulate.
Focused and articulate, yeah. So, and then we did Screamers, and then later on, you know, just different projects where that became a reality. And now, because I'm writing a book, I'm going back and revisiting some more details of those, you know, stories, family stories. How did my parents meet? And, you know, how did that happen? Like things that I never thought that I would be digging into. How did my grandparents meet? You know, grandparents I've never met because they perished before I was born, or that kind of stuff. Yeah. And of course, going back into the genocide because that was their road to survival. And so how did they survive? How many sisters and brothers did they have? And so, you know, the specific area of where they went through and more details for the book, which is interesting because it's as if I'm always, every 5-10 years, revisiting my people's history, my family's history, maybe as a reminder of who I am and who we are. I don't know. It's not on purpose. It's kind of like just happens that way. Each project I pick, something comes and something goes.
It's interesting because you think that there's so many layers in us, you know, have been compounded over the years, and it's the Hamidian Wars, the genocide, the Soviet Union, the earthquake. It's just like all these different traumas that have been compounded. We don't necessarily stop to think about them, you know, and we do on a cognitive level, but not necessarily on an emotional healing process. But I think you're doing that kind of healing without you knowing it, just by being part from these projects and going back and understanding where this comes from. I have a couple more questions that just, I mean, I have 1,000 questions, but for the sake of time, you know, you were there's obviously in the next couple of weeks we have the 31st anniversary of Armenia's independence. So I'm just thinking, what does Armenia's independence mean for you?
It's interesting because in the diaspora, as a young Armenian kid, I grew up without an independent Armenia.
How old were you when actually it was declared, more or less?
91?
Yeah, 91, more or less.
I was an adult, obviously, but as a teenager, you know, Armenia was Soviet. It was, we knew of Armenia as a concept because we weren't able to visit it, and you know, and we had met people coming from Armenia, friends coming from Armenia, or family members, and we would hear from them, but it's very detached, right? So as an adult, you experience Armenia in person, and the first time I came was 2001. But that's a very, very poignant question you just asked. What does Armenian independence mean?
You know why I ask? Maybe this will help. Because you're a person that was born in Lebanon, very young age, your family moved to California, to the US. You know, and I feel the same way. I mean, I never actually came to Armenia until, you know, the early 2000s. So I'm just curious to know, how does a person actually understand this whole concept of independence as a state for the people when we've been abroad in the diaspora for such a long time?
It's actually, for me, the answer is very simple. Without an independent Armenia, our lifeline as a nation is short. Yeah. That's what it means to us. It's our lifeline. Yes, we have struggled for hundreds of years without a homeland, but we've seen what that's done to our diaspora. You know, we've lost likely 1 million people within the Ottoman Empire as far as Armenians. I don't want to say lost, because that link in a way may always be there, and we see some of that coming back with the Hamshen communities and other areas of Turkey now. But we've seen what it does. You know, we've seen what the diaspora has done to Jews as well for, you know, 1,000 years not having a nation. We should also focus on what a homeland means to other diasporas as well, which is very interesting. What does it mean for Jews to have a homeland in Israel? What does it mean to the Lebanese around the world to have a homeland? You know, it's a very interesting thing. It's diaspora, homeland kind of philosophy or kind of realization. But to me, having a homeland is the guarantee that our culture, our national privilege, which is our culture, will survive. You know, it's the most important thing as a nation.
So, Starmus, very briefly, you've been part of the Starmus Festival. I think it's an important festival. Why has it been important for you to take part in this and to work with Garik Israelian on this project? I mean, we understand the concept and the purpose is to actually bridge music, art, and science. And like I said earlier, it just helps people like me. I'm not a science person, but it helps really open my eyes and understand more of the importance of science, especially in a country where science used to be prevalent and now not as much because of the system not being able to invest properly in science. Why is it important for you to be part of Starmus?
So years ago, we're trying to figure out what date it was. I want to say it was 2011. We held a forum with Civilitas, with Serj Tankian moderating, at the Moscow Theater. So we had all these journalists in the theater and answering questions and just doing a nice, you know, talk with Serj. You guys have it in your archives because you guys released it. And at the time, we went through a lot of topics, you know, diaspora-Armenia relations, corruption, all this stuff. And at the end, there were selective guests that weren't leaving that really wanted to see me, and, you know, people were trying to, you know, so I was seeing a bunch of people coming in, and one organization after another, after an activist, after another. And I remember that the last person that I met with was a scientist from Armenia, and he came in and immediately he said, what language would you like me to talk to you in? And I said, so he started speaking to me in fluent English, and he, in a very short period, described the deterioration of the scientific community within Armenia post-Soviet. And it was really, really heartbreaking. He had an incredible impact on me, and it brought me to tears. Because it didn't just describe the deterioration of our scientific self, it described the deterioration of a lot of things at the time. You know, that was 2011. I think we've recovered from some of that already, which is great as a nation. But I think there's still a lot of recovery, as we all know, that we need to do on many fronts. So Starmus is, you know, I think any festival that wants to highlight Armenia, bring people to Armenia, bring attention to Armenia, bring economic benefit to Armenia is a great idea. And Starmus is no exception. I met Garik in person. Garik and I have been trading emails for many years. He wanted me to participate in a previous festival in another country, which I was unable to. And then we met in person in 2019 at the WCIT conference at Hamalir and had a great chat. And he said, I really want to bring Starmus to Armenia. And I encouraged him. I said, that's a fantastic idea. I think that would be amazing. And so he did. You know, he couldn't do the festival in 2020 or 2021. So it, you know, came in 2022, and he called and he said, you know, you have to come. And I said, oh, I guess I do.
Since you encouraged him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
And so one final question. Rumi. The song Rumi obviously is a tribute to not just the poet, the Persian poet, but also to your almost 8-year-old son. What do you want your legacy to be for him?
That's really difficult. I try not to focus on legacy because that's for other people to focus on. Just like other people to write about you is better than you write about yourself. I don't know, because whatever I want to be doesn't matter. You know, ultimately it will be what it will be for him, and I hope it's something beneficial to him in every way. You know, we care for our kids, we love our kids, we want them to have the best possibilities in life and the best experiences, but we want them to do it in a way that they appreciate life. So struggle is a part of that. And so the trick is, how do you inject struggle when in a life that might be more comfortable for them than your own? And that is something I pay a lot of attention to and thoughts to. Yeah, it's hard. The parenting thing is difficult.
The word legacy is a very difficult word.
It is.
It is. It's not something that you have a beautiful formula for, but obviously it's something that you want to think about. How do I want my children to remember me?
Yeah.
And you know, what kind of compassionate person, or you know, by my example, they'll choose their own path. But obviously,
I think the example thing is key.
Yeah.
I think the example is the key, because you could say things, do things, project things, organize things for them, but ultimately, you know, you are their hero as a parent, right? Yeah. Or anti-hero, depending on the day.
Let's hope not.
So you have to, you know, I think that's a big deal, you know. But the song itself, the song Rumi that I released early this year, I guess, or was it last year? Can't even remember anymore.
I think it was early this year, but anyhow.
Yeah, it was. I had written it when he was much younger, when he couldn't speak, and it was almost like, you know, when I wrote the song, this thought of, what if I wasn't around tomorrow? What would I tell my son? Was the concept behind the song, and the chorus, if I remember correctly, is. Stay away from God and crime. Embody justice for this tormenting and tormented world.
Yeah, the message was more or less how we're bombarded by so many different types of religions and different types of concepts and theories. And I think what resonated the most was, you choose your path.
You choose your own path. You know, go in, you know, with your feet head on. You know. Don't dip your toe, go all the way, kind of thing. And remember that life is about learning and loving, and nothing else is important.
Serj, thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
My pleasure, Lara.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful.
Merci, John.
Thank you.